Your title is an emotional eating coach.
Yes.
So a lot of people probably hear that term and go, what the fuck is an emotional eating coach?
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
can you explain to me what the fuck an emotional eating coach is?
Yeah, so you'd be very right to have that perception of an emotional eating coach, because it's something that's, I would say, under the radar within the fitness industry. It's almost like a little side niche within the fitness industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what an emotional eater is anyone who struggles with yo-yo dieting habits, people who maybe lose weight, gain it back, lose weight, gain it back. They're kind of on that merry-go-round of eating healthy, falling off track, eating healthy, falling off track. Or people who maybe do have diagnosed eating disorders such as bulimia, anorexia, binge eating disorder.
Yeah.
They kind of fall into that category as well. Essentially, anyone who wants to lose weight and eat healthier but can't seem to manage it, I would somewhat class them as an emotional eater.
Right,
you know?
interesting, yeah.
And I guess my coaching, the way that I coach people, that I help people, that I educate people, is on educating them around the reasons why they can't, stick to a healthy diet.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what emotional eating coaching is. A bit
Yeah.
of the mindset, a bit of the actual habits as well. Get my clients to obviously eat better, train better, have better habits, just like you would in the fitness industry if you're a personal trainer.
Yeah.
But then attaching this like deeper level mindset to it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I do.
Well, it's funny because we talked when, obviously I came to see you speak in Newcastle and stuff, and we talked about, like, you were saying that a lot of personal trainers are telling people to get their diets in order and, like, just eat better and stuff like that. But then there's this other side of it, this behind the scenes thing that's running them secretly. So can you talk a little bit about how you discovered that? Like, did you go through that yourself, I'm assuming? Like, what's your background in that?
Absolutely. So I guess what got me on this journey of wanting to help people with emotional eating was because I was an emotional eater myself. And I did have, in hindsight, looking back, I wasn't diagnosed, but that was because I was bottling it up, hiding it from the world, hiding it from myself. But I struggled with, I guess it would be categorized as bulimia, where I'd go on this this extreme fad diet, and I was in great shape, because I was a personal trainer. I'd done bodybuilding competitions, photo shoots, that sort of stuff. So I knew what to do to get in great shape, but I was kind of hiding this eating disorder where I would go on these extreme diets for weeks or months on end, and then when the competition was over or the photo shoot was over, or when I just decided to quit because it was too difficult, I'd end up going the other way and binging completely and not being able to stick to my word about how I wanted to eat. And then I'd gain massive amounts of weight. Like I remember in 2018, I talked about this in my show that I've done, the speaking gig. I gained 30 pounds in 5 days after a bodybuilding show.
That's mad.
It is mad. And I spent like 5 days in bed feeling depressed because I didn't win the show. Feeling depressed.
All that work and see, like, fuck.
Basically, yeah. So I was putting my entire mood, and this is how dangerous this can be when you put your entire self-worth on a pedestal about achieving some sort of external thing that you're not actually in control of. It's bodybuilding. I mean, I'm not into it anymore. But at the time, it was my entire life. It was my entire identity. And I kind of perceived, well, if I win this show, if I get the accolades of the trophy, then all of this pain I've been going through is worth it. But that it's a subjective sport, meaning that it's down to someone else's opinion. So no matter what you do, it might not be good enough to win the show. So I realized how dangerous that was. And because I was getting so obsessed with it to literally neurotic levels, my self-worth was on this pedestal of I must win this show, I must be the best, I must look this way. And when I didn't get the results that I desired, my entire world caved in, crumbled. And that's how dangerous it is to put your self-worth on your image, on your physical image, because it's only something you can impact. It's not necessarily something you can control.
I like that, yeah.
And I realized the drive and the unconscious thoughts behind that was driving my overeating and restrictive behaviors when it came to food was anxiety. So it was anxiety, not feeling good enough, so wanting to kind of perpetuate this image of I'm the guy in shape, I'm the guy who's got the six pack, I'm the bodybuilder, putting on this kind of like tough man image, if you like. But that was to run away from how anxious I felt.
Yeah.
But then when anxiety became too hard to handle, I would use food to control the anxiety. So I was in this catch-22 rock hard situation where no matter how hard I tried, eventually my anxiety would get the better of me. I'd binge on food to make myself feel better, but in doing so I would destroy the results that I set out for myself, which I was attaching my self-worth to. So it was this self-fulfilling prophecy, if you like. And because I experienced all of that and then done a lot of mindset work, personal development work on myself to understand why I was feeling like that, why I was anxious, why I was depressed, why I was masking that with my physical body as an attempt to run away from that, emotional pain. I realized that, wow, other people do this as well, because the same clients who I was helping, years later, were also telling me the same things, the same feelings, the same problems, and they were ultimately getting the same results as me. They were getting results, losing weight, gaining it all back, getting results, losing weight, gaining it all back. So the more and more I researched into it, I found that 90% of people who actually attempt to lose weight worldwide gain it all back in 12 months or less.
90%.
90%. Yeah, according to a study from Marshall S. Runge, which I believe is a professor from the University of Harvard. This was done in 2017 when they kind of done an analysis on diet culture and the things that people will follow in an attempt to lose quick weight. It doesn't work, so 9 times out of 10, if you try and lose weight, you'll fail. You'll either get the result and then gain it back, or you'll just not be able to stick to it because it was an extreme method.
Well, that's the thing. I think it comes with obviously working in a gym here and stuff. You see that like people go through these all or nothing phases where they're 100% like they eat like it's like chicken, rice, and broccoli. That's all they eat for like months, right? And then eventually it becomes way too much to handle. It's not sustainable. It doesn't benefit their lifestyle. They're more miserable than they were before. And then what happens? They break that cycle, they go back to the way they were, and they put all that weight back on. It's just this endless, like, it is about what's maintainable as well. And like, you look at these bodybuilders and you think, oh, that's like incredible amount of muscle, and it looks amazing on stage, but you forget how much discipline and how taxing that actually is on the body. Because most bodybuilders on the day of the show feel like absolute shit.
Yeah,
they feel like shit because they're dehydrated. They haven't had carbs for God knows how long. It's like they're just miserable, angry, ratty bastards. It's So take me back to when you were doing the competition. What position did you come in? Do you remember?
I came third in both of the shows that I did. Yeah, one of them only had 3 people in as well, so technically last.
Well, we're gonna say third, but how did that feel though after all that effort? Because you see a lot of people will rarely go through that amount of work for something. So tell me how you felt about when you heard that announcement. You're like, all that work, and like,
yeah, it was horrendous, especially the first show that I did, because I had people there who were like, yeah, Sam, you should have won. And still looking back now, I don't necessarily believe I should have won, because there was certainly guys who were a little bit more in shape than me, but I was the biggest, I had the best shape, and there was people saying like, yeah, I think you should have won. And when I found out the guys who came first and second before me, they were the guys who went to the judge's gym. So the judge owned a gym, and they were his guys.
Wow, so you think
so
it was
that
like a...
did piss me off. I mean, in hindsight, I look back and think, actually, I think I probably deserved that space. But because I had people in my time, in my circle that time saying, yeah, Sam, this guy, this gym owner, or this judge rather, he owns the gym, and the guys who came before you, they got first and second because of that. Obviously, in that moment when I'm a very heartbroken that all that effort that I put into didn't really pay off, or what I perceived didn't pay off, it just made me very angry.
Yeah, it's also like a betrayal though as well when you think about it. It's like, well, you're a judge, you're supposed to be impartial, you're not supposed to know the people that are in it. Like,
but here's the thing, Adam, that's the game. If you pick to do bodybuilding, it's a subjective sport. It's not tangible. Like, let's say Usain Bolt running a 100-meter sprint. Yeah. Who wins? Who crosses the finish line? It's tangible. There is no. It's fact. Yeah. He comes before it. They can see via the naked eye, or they can see via the slow motion cameras. It's tangible. Yeah. It's objective. You know what I mean? Whereas something like bodybuilding, it's essentially a pageant, right?
It's subjective, yeah.
It's subjective, so there is no right and wrong. So it's all about hearsay and opinions. So how dangerous is that, putting your entire identity on the opinions of others? So when I look back now, I realise that it's just a dangerous thing to get into, especially if you suffer with low body image, previous eating disorders, or low self-worth. And I was using the whole bodybuilding, I'm a big bodybuilder, and I'm in shape, and I'm looking like this, as a way to run away from my own insecurities. Yeah. So it was like pouring petrol on the fire, adding fuel to the fire. Yeah. So for me, I'm not actually bothered about losing now. Like, I don't necessarily care, because I'm kind of over it. And I realised that was more of a reflection of my insecurities and my beliefs rather than reality in front of me. Yeah. Because, again, I'm being judged based off not what I'm doing in that moment, off someone's opinion. So how dangerous is that anyway? So I could have generally looked the best, and still lost, or I could have looked the worst but still won, depending on
whatever they were feeling that day. Yeah. So, which is bad. Like, we look at like a lot of things on social media as well. Social media is probably one of the things that fucks up mental health, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But I think for a lot of people, like me, I'm not a tall guy. I'm not a broad guy. I was naturally skinny growing up. Like. And for me, I'm still like, I go to the gym and I'm like, I am like 3 times the size I was when I started. And then some dude will come next to me, and he's like huge. Like, he's just a monster. He's like the monster from like Game of Thrones. No, not the monster. What's he called? The mountain from Game of Thrones. Right? He's like fucking huge. And it's just like, I'm like, oh shit. But then I have a moment where I go, okay, well, I can use this guy as, well, I'm not good enough. I feel shit. I need to be that to be attractive, or I need to be that way to, you know, have my self-worth, my ego validated. Or I can be like, you know what, that dude's clearly put the fucking work in, deserves it. I'm going to model whatever he's doing and get even better than I am. And I think that's what most people struggle with, is this comparison mindset, this comparisonitis and stuff like that. Like, were you on Instagram and stuff around the time of bodybuilding? Were you looking at all these people going, fuck, I need this ab, fuck, I need these obliques coming through? Like,
that's exactly what I was doing, Adam. And imagine this scenario. This is not a hypothetical scenario. This is a real experience of mine. The morning of the show, I needed to be on one of the shows I'd done. I wanted to enter the under 85 kilo class, which I would have been the biggest guy in the class and probably would have won. But because I wasn't able to stick to my diet fully, I was like 2 or 3 kilos over. Right. So on the morning of the show, I genuinely felt suicidal because I didn't make the weight class, and I knew I had to enter the bigger one. So I knew I was going to get smoked.
Shit.
So, and that was all because of comparison. I should look like this. I should be this weight. I should look like these guys. So because of this comparison, because of social media, I was creating so much anxiety, therefore putting so much pressure on myself, which was just, again, adding fuel to the fire, and I couldn't handle it mentally. At the time, I wasn't that strong, and I had that very all or nothing mindset.
Yeah.
I would even go as far as say I had a bit of a victim complex at that time, because behind the scenes, and I think the reason why I was actually distracting myself with the bodybuilding at the time was because of my personal life at the time. I was all over the place. Dysfunctional relationship with my parents. I blamed them for a lot of things. Isolated myself from them. Didn't speak to them, even though I was living in the same house at the time.
Yeah.
Didn't speak to them. Horrible dysfunctional relationship. Wasn't getting on with my partner at the time. I was just totally distant. I was a zombie.
Yeah.
I wasn't meeting her needs. I wasn't prioritizing the relationship. Isolated myself from all my friends, because my friends used to take the piss a little bit, you know, about the bodybuilding thing.
Yeah,
you know,
they do.
You're essentially on stage in a blue thong, you know, and fake tan. I can see now why they were taking the piss, but at the time, I took it really personally. So I had a lot of hate and resentment, and I was unemployed at the time as well, so I had nothing to focus on. I was in debt. I was paying for this bodybuilding thing through credit cards, to be honest, and whatever money I could muster up. I didn't have any money, no savings, in debt, and living in my overdraft, credit cards. It wasn't a nice place to be. So the place where I was at in my personal life was just reflecting in my bodybuilding as well. So it was just a complete wrong thing to do. And I say now it was more of a distraction than a passion. It wasn't really a passion; it was a distraction. You know, so yeah, it was.
I think that's actually the thing for most people, though.
It is.
A lot of people live lives of distraction rather than passion. It's like everything that we do is just to distract. Like, you can be like, oh, well, I love to watch movies and stuff. It's like, well, yeah, I love to watch movies, but it's still a distraction. Like, there's other stuff that you know, could probably address more so. There's other stuff that you could be doing other than Netflix and chill or doing whatever. It's like, when you really find a passion, you'll know, because there's very little stress in it.
Yeah. It feels like you're in flow state.
Yeah.
I wasn't in flow state. Everything felt forced to be able to do that because it was coming from insecurity, a drive to escape my emotional voids rather than living this, you know, authentic, aligned life with your true values and your true passions. You know, so that I don't hold any resentment towards the whole bodybuilding thing. And like I say, the judges, I should have won and whatever. That's open for debate. I'm actually not too concerned about that now, because I knew that was a lesson that I needed to go through in my life. And I'm almost glad it happened, even though it was a very dark place, and especially post-show. I mean, I don't know if you've had any bodybuilders on before, you've spoke to people, but post-show, after the thing's done, the event's done, the adrenaline dump you get, the come down you get, the emotional, all the emotions that you've been kind of like suppressing because you're just tunnel vision like a robot for this show, it all comes flooding to the surface. And it's very, very difficult to deal with. And I think unless you've got a very strong, resilient mindset, or you have a passion for it, like you said, which I clearly didn't, it was a distraction, it's a dangerous thing to do. And
you were using it to fuel something else within. So but loads of people do that. And I mean, when I first started going to the gym, right, I'm thinking back to when I first started going to the gym. I was like, I just turned 18, and I remember the first day I went in, I had this really tough Geordie bloke called Paul, right? I love him, right? He's class. And he was like, all right, let's take you through see where you're at, kind of thing. And we had this, you know, one of the bars, the 20 kilogram bars, and I couldn't lift it. I just couldn't pick it up. I didn't have the form. I didn't have the strength in my arms or anything. And I remember the reason I started to go is because I'd not long been dumped by I think I was with her for like 8 months or something. And then we were at a party, and I found out that she was seeing some other guy, like pretty much like within like a short space of time. And this dude was like, he wasn't like jacked, but he was like really big.
More jacked.
And I was like, fuck, like I'm sick of being the small one. There's always someone bigger. And it wasn't insecurity, you know what I mean? I'll hold my hands up and say it was insecurity. So I started training, but then the funny thing was I would train with such intensity, and I'd be like, I was one of those guys that walked to the gym, hood up, motivational tapes on, Les Brown shouting at me, Eric Thomas is giving me speeches and stuff like that, and I'm like getting there and I'm pumping myself up and getting angry and getting these, like, getting okay results for such a skinny guy. But then I was like burning out, and I was getting ready to go to the gym in the morning, and I was retching. I was like, because the anxiety was like too much. I was like, I don't want to lift anything. Like, so I had to take a step back, and then I was like, what other reasons? What's my why for why I'm doing this? I think it was a book by Simon Sinek that changed my mindset on this. I think it's Start With Why, and he talks about literally the reason why you do something is like key to anything. So when me and Sam here are talking about, distractions and whatever else, if you're doing something, find out why you do it. Don't just say, well, I'm doing this because it sounds cool or this. It's like, it might be, but you need to look below the surface and kind of see what's running me, what insecurity is going on, why do I feel the need to do this, why do I feel like I have to do this, like, and there's a lot more to human psychology than people think. And I know me and you love human psychology, especially evolutionary psychology.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Since my last bodybuilding show in 2018, that's when I kind of had like my epiphany. Yeah, so it was about a week before the show. I believe the last show I'd done was like the 1st of April. So I still remember the date now, 23rd of March 2018. The darkest day of my life, but also the day that set me free. Because that's when I had this, like, that awakening, that epiphany moment that I'm sure everyone's had in their life when you've been at rock bottom. And then because you're rock bottom, pain becomes a motivator.
Yeah.
When you reach that point, pain can become a powerful motivator, and you'll avoid it until you become so painful. So I was avoiding all these insecurities and the holes in my life, the fact I was unemployed, I had a university degree, I got 2 university degrees, wasn't doing anything with it. My relationship was on the rocks. I had a totally dysfunctional relationship with my parents. I was isolated from my friends. I had all these gaping holes in my life, and I was just distracting myself with this bodybuilding show. And I think at the time I convinced myself that if I won this show, I'd somehow get a job, I'd be a successful personal trainer.
Yeah.
I even think I had like fantasies of thinking like My Protein would sponsor me as an athlete or something. Like I genuinely had these delusions or these fantasies in my mind about, if I just win this show, everything will be all right. And I realised that wasn't coming.
Yeah.
So when I realised that wasn't coming, I remember feeling so anxious, and I did struggle with panic attacks at the time. And I remember I had this panic attack about 4 a.m. in my room, just woke up in complete terror, my heart beating so fast, thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And I just had to leave the house. And when I left the house, I was just like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I was planning on doing, but I was going to leave the house and not come back. And whatever, I figured it out at the time. It was more like a moment of madness, like an anger thing.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this. I'm done. I don't want to live anymore. But on that walk, it was like just walking around 4 or 5 o'clock, pissing down South Shields right next to KFC.
Yeah.
In South Shields. I don't know if you've ever seen The Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Do you know when he escapes from prison and he's just
shoving
goes on his knees
shit.
and he just looks on the ground in the air and just like he has that moment of like release.
Yeah.
Well, I almost had that moment when I realised like I just need to stop this bodybuilding thing. I need to get control of my life. I need to stop blaming other people. And it was like this hybrid of like complete anger, resentment, rage, depression, anxiety, but also like nobody's coming to save you, Sam.
Yeah.
And it was like this complete moment of madness where I left the house thinking I'm done, I'm not coming back, versus this is down to me. So I just had this like completely emotionally freeing moment where I'm on my hands and knees in the middle of South Shields at 4:30 in the morning, pissing down with rain. I'm screaming to the sky. It was like weird to even think about it, but that's where I was at the time. And in that moment, I remember just like having this like level of clarity, like after the show next week, because I've already paid for it, already committed to it.
Yeah.
I need to sort my shit out.
Yeah.
I need to get a job. I need to stop running away from this relationship thing with my parent. I've got these skills, I've got these tools that I can give the world, and I'm not doing it. So I need to stop focusing on me and start focusing on other people.